It's a big frontal attack mounted by the Congress party saying economy is now in coma. And let me take this to Shweta Punj and Rajiv with me on the broadcast. Shweta, is the economy now in coma? Is there merit in Randeep Surjewala saying this is deep recession?
It is a deep problem for sure. Technically speaking, it does not qualify for a recession because recession means negative growth. I mean, that's the definition of recession. But in terms of the data, you look at the agriculture sector, it grew at 2.1% in the second quarter as compared to 2% in the first quarter. Mining is down to 0.1%. Manufacturing is down.
Negative.
It's negative. Manufacturing is negative. It's in the negative. Construction is at 3.3% compared to the 5.7% in the first quarter. So look at all your economic drivers.
Core sectors, all down, drivers. Rajiv.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Rajiv, all of them down.
Yes.
Where is the government going so wrong? Why aren't government's efforts working?
So I seriously believe we missed very good opportunities in the Piyush Goyal budget, which where if we had, it was very clear even in the Piyush Goyal budget that the economy is slowing down. Then we missed a great opportunity in the first interim budget and then the final budget. We missed multiple opportunities. But the at the core of all this misses is the fact that the government doesn't seriously believe that it's a consumption slowdown. The government believes it's an investment slowdown. And so it is working on investment.
Yes.
This is where the disconnect is. The economy is going one way and the government is going another way. So this is a serious disconnect that is there between what is the ground reality and what the government thinks is.
Let's understand this fact that Indian economy was in shambles before COVID-19 crisis hit entire country. We also have to understand that mining, coal, retail, agriculture, automobile and many other industries were going down and at a very faster pace. So the question remains, where was the focus of this government all the time?
Our entire government's focus has been either on, on the temple or Kashmir. It's always been about the optics. It's always been about, nationalism. Economy has not been their focus area.
All right, we understand. We all understand totally. Remember Prime Minister Modi's speech during Lockdown 2.0, wherein he said that none of the employers should fire their employees? Well, listen to this.
छठी बात, आप अपने व्यवसाय, अपने उद्योग में अपने साथ काम करे लोगों के प्रति संवेदना रखें, किसी को नौकरी से न निकालें.
Well, this advisory was also taken down by Supreme Court of India, stating that employers have full rights to hire or fire anyone. They also suggested that government should come up with an economic package as early as possible. Hey guys, I'm your host Muzammil Maqbool and I welcome you to another episode of Plain Talk with MMB. On today's episode, we're going to talk about economic crisis in India and the possible way out. On the panel first, I have with me Professor Mohan Guruswamy. He is a professor as well as author of many books on public policy, latest being Chasing the Dragon, Will India Catch Up with China? We also have Rajiv Tyagi with us, Captain Rajiv Tyagi, an ex-Indian Air Force pilot, as well as a successful entrepreneur. We also have Dr. Jamal on the panel who will be talking about economic crisis and the possible way out. Let's welcome Mr. Mohan Guruswamy first. Mr. Mohan Guruswamy, thank you so much for being with me on Plain Talk. It's really an honor to have you on my podcast.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Mr. Guruswamy, let me go ahead and start today's episode with one important question. IMF recently said that the economic slowdown which is happening worldwide is mostly because of India. They also projected the growth rate of India has been lowered down to a mere 4.8%. The unemployment rate is worst hit in the entire country. Yet our Prime Minister Modi is eyeing to reach a $5 trillion economy by 2024. Do you think it's achievable as of now?
Yeah, I'll have to first make a correction. The IMF has now come out, the chief economist of the IMF has now said that the Indian GDP in 2021 will contract by 4.5%.
Okay.
Be minus 4.5%.
Wow.
So there is no question of growth.
Okay.
Growth was somewhere in the past. We were thinking of growth, and 4.8% was at that time considered low growth.
Okay.
Now, minus 4.5 is considered low contraction because many economists are actually expecting this contraction to be almost 10%. So, and the reason why the IMF is saying India has slowed down is because China is back at its old growth levels. It's back to higher production, and its growth is now being driven by domestic consumption.
Okay.
What it has lost in the export markets, it is selling in the domestic markets. It has loosened credit availability to its domestic consumers, and it is consuming domestically. India, which was contributing 12 to 15% of world GDP growth, is now not going to contribute. It's going to be negative, which is why and it is the third largest economy in the world.
Absolutely.
In PPP terms, which is why the world GDP is going to be affected. America is contracting, India is contracting, only China is growing. So if China was not growing, our contraction would be even more.
Absolutely. And we also saw our Prime Minister, Modi, Mr. Modi, talking about the $5 trillion economy, which entire countries are by 2024.
I don't think $5 trillion was feasible, even in happier times when he was talking about it.
Okay.
2024 is not feasible.
Okay.
5 trillion will happen, but maybe 27, 28.
Okay.
Not 2024 at the time Modi ji was talking. Now we might be quite lucky if we touch 5 trillion in 28, 29.
Okay.
Because it's going to take that much time to recover.
Okay.
You don't get your growth rates up immediately from minus. You're not going to get it into plus 5, plus 6 very soon. It's going to take time. It's going to require a lot of investment, a lot of hard work, a lot of savings, which I don't see any sign of that happening now. The government is not thinking of it. And it has been very quiet on economic stimulus. The whole world has been giving economic stimulus. USA, Japan, France, Germany, Britain, everybody's been giving average of 15 to 20%, 25% of GDP as economic stimulus. The US alone is putting $3.5 trillion as economic stimulus, which means additional money being pumped into the economy. We have given so far about 60,000 crores. There is a peculiar mindset in India that fiscal stimulus or pump priming the economy is bad. It's in our mindset. And this mindset is, a difference between the Keynesian economics and the Chicago economics. I call it Chicago economics or Gujarati mindset.
Absolutely.
When things are bad, you need to spend money.
Absolutely.
Not when things are good. Also, you need to spend money, but not so much. But things are bad. You got to put money in the hands of people so that they can put foods on their thalis, and economy is revived that way by consumption from the bottom.
Absolutely.
Not by consumption at the top. The top consumption is very limited. How many additional tons of wheat will the middle and upper classes consume?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So these are issues which we have to resolve. This is a major ideological issue in India, and it is unfortunate that nobody is raising it. They're not talking about it. Because ideology has lost relevance in India. And relevance is now whether a temple will save India or no.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Guruswamy. Let me move ahead to the Galwan standoff, the recent Galwan standoff. India recently started a campaign called Boycott China. A lot of apps were banned, but little less people understand that the trade is still going on, which is going to, who is going to hurt most when it comes to, boycotting China? Is it China itself or is it India?
Well, China is not going to hurt because the Indian market for them, export market, is a very small part of their total global export market.
True.
It is less than 5%.
Less than 5%.
Okay? So China is not going to hurt. India is going to hurt because there are many sectors in which we're totally dependent on the Chinese. This is, for instance, the pharmaceutical sector. We have stopped making APIs
True.
In India, which are the basic chemicals you need to make formulations.
Absolutely.
Medicines. We have stopped making them, and most of our API production has gone away to China. We used to produce a lot of this now. That went off to China because of various reasons. The cost of production is cheaper in China. Cost of doing business is cheaper. Ease of doing business is easier. So all those factors have driven them to China. Now we have to get them back. It's going to take time to get them back. It's not going to be easy. And similarly in telecom, 80% of our smartphones come from China.
True.
Only the high-end smartphones come from Korea and some other countries. Not even Japan anymore. China supplies most of our... So we have got now no production indigenously. Even the assembly units we've got up now are dependent on parts from China. So you suddenly can't say that I will not import Chinese. It will take time. And if you replace Chinese production with your own production, it makes sense. It's to your economic benefit. But if you replace Chinese production with somebody else's production, it is the same.
Absolutely.
Because you're still paying for it in dollars. So it makes no sense. With Chinese cost of goods are usually cheaper. Why pay more for what you can get from China cheap? China is a preferred producer of components and raw materials because it is a cheap producer.
Absolutely.
That is China's big advantage. Why should we spend more money elsewhere to spite China? Particularly when it doesn't affect it.
Absolutely. And
as far as Galwan is concerned, we were sleeping.
True.
That the Chinese occupied it under our noses.
Absolutely.
So we have to ask our security forces, what were you doing? Instead of asking the Chinese. The Chinese always claimed that area. But we were there, and why did we give them space? That should be the question.
Absolutely. And they are also eyeing, Arunachal Pradesh, which they show them in their maps as southern Tibet.
Yes. They've been eyeing that for a long time. They can eye anything. I once told a Chinese audience in Shanghai that you can even eye Tangra in Calcutta, which is a Chinatown, because there are Chinese people living there.
Absolutely.
But doesn't mean that we will let you take it. There are some things in which, we've got to get an agreement with China that this new map drawing will end. For that, we have to get an agreement with all our neighbors, including Pakistan.
True.
But maybe, this new map drawing should end. We should settle with what we've got. There is no end to this.
I totally agree. And recently a new phrase was coined as Atmanirbhar Bharat. In true senses, to make India an export economy, more of an import economy. So how do you see in true senses, how much time it will take on real grounds to build an Atmanirbhar Bharat?
We have not done it in 70 years, and we cannot do it also for a long time because nobody is totally self-reliant.
That's absolutely
everybody
correct.
Is reliant on imports. Matter of fact, it's a paradoxical situation. The more you export, the more you import. You cannot export without importing.
It's true.
Even look at China's trade bill. It imports, but then adds value to what it imports and exports it out.
True.
So I think this is something we need to understand. that Atmanirbhar is a good idea. But, which is our biggest Atmanirbhar, you should start with defense sector.
True.
We are importing everything. Even today, while Prime Minister talking about Atmanirbhar, his defense people are running all over the world looking for weapons to buy.
True.
And look at the way we have got so excited because some weapons were imported from France. We have to balance our feelings and do all these things in a cool, calm, and collected manner. Atmanirbhar will take many years to achieve. And what were you doing for 5 years?
Absolutely.
If you think that we got overly dependent on others.
That's absolutely correct. Mr. Guruswamy, let's talk about the current situation in the entire country. We are into a lockdown 3.0, and I recently read a statement which you also had shared on your social media handle. Dr. Fauci says 29% of asymptomatic never develop symptoms, but accounts for 45% of the COVID-19 infections. How do you see this going on in the second largest country by population, if at all we reopen in on lockdown 4.0?
India has now become the biggest COVID growth population in the world.
Without any doubt.
And the next 1 million addition will take place in just 12 days. But it's a fact of life that many people who are carriers of corona are without symptoms.
Absolutely.
Mostly young people don't carry symptoms.
True.
So the only protection against coronavirus till we get the vaccine is social distancing. And we can practice social distancing in India, selective social distancing. Certain age groups, certain vulnerable groups can be made to voluntarily practice isolation. In China, you forcibly make them practice isolation. In India, we have to do it voluntarily. But even that is not being practiced. We're having temples are open, mosques are opening, and so gathering in marketplaces taking place. There's no social distancing norms being practiced. So I think we have to be ready for the long haul. But on the other hand, our mortality rates are very low because our plus 65 age group cohort is very small, relatively small. It's only 6%, as opposed to France and Italy and Germany, which have had high mortality rates. They have almost a quarter of the population about this age group. And so with Japan. So to that extent, our youthfulness, if you call it, that is the absence of old people, is to our advantage.
Mr. Guruswamy, I'm worried about two things. Since we are going into a lockdown 4.0, what if schools and the metros are allowed, to restart again? Do you think that is something which metro cities should be worried of?
No, I think schools and metros can start because it's generally well known that young people tolerate coronavirus very well. And even if they are symptomatic, it is mild symptoms. 90% exhibit only mild symptoms. That is cough and cold. And it passes like a common cold. It's only the vulnerable groups, the above 65 people with other problems, health problems, who are at high risk. And that too, morbidity there is about 20%. So therefore, we needn't become very panicky about it. But metros should be spaced out. People should practice distancing in metros. People should practice distancing in buses. And people who are unhealthy, who are visibly unhealthy, should be discouraged from traveling in public modes of transmission. But at one stage, we also have to move a little more freely to increase immunity.
Absolutely.
If we all remain isolated, we will be immune till we are exposed again. And permanent isolation is not a solution. It is gradual immunity we have to build up.
True.
And that should be the goal. I think, therefore, we should be practicing things like, no metros on Sundays, or, markets opening by rotation at different days of the week, and things like that, to stagger the number of people meeting each other in public places.
Absolutely.
And as social distancing, we should practice in our homes, in our cultural events, in our religious events. All that is very important.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, sir. We should boost our immunity as well as, practice social distancing. Mr. Guruswamy, thank you so much for being with us on Plain Talk today. It was really a pleasure having you. And we hope to speak with you again very soon.
Certainly, I look forward to. Thank you very
so
much. Bye.
Have a lovely time ahead. Bye. Alright guys, this was Mr. Mohan Guruswamy with us. Next on the panel we have Captain Rajiv Tyagi. Let's welcome him. Captain Rajiv Tyagi, thank you so much for being with me on Plain Talk. It's really an honor to have you on my show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me over on your show.
You're welcome. Captain, we're at number one when it comes to COVID-19 positive cases across India, across the world as well. Our foreign trade has been declined overall by 30% from last 6 months. How do you see current economic crisis affecting entrepreneurs like you across India?
Well, as the lockdown opened, there has been some pent-up demand, which has been noticed by industry, which has been noticed by the government. And people are tom-tomming this pent-up demand, but I don't think this pent-up demand is an indicator of what is going to be the future of the market. The pent-up demand will go away in another month or maybe 2 months. And after that, I see a lot of pain for industry, especially for small and medium industry.
True.
The government has come out with some sort of schemes which involves small and medium industries being able to get loans without collateral from banks. But that is basically everything on paper. On the ground, banks are saying that they do not have instructions from their head office. Now, unless the government proactively addresses this problem, this is going to cause a lot of pain in the market. A lot of companies are going to down their shutters, not being able to, finance their projects or their sales, their manufacturing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if I may ask, what kind of entrepreneurship, you are into, and how it has personally affected you ever since, we went into lockdown 1.0, in the month of March?
Well, I'm fortunate in the sense that I supply a mix of goods to industry as well as to defense. Now, my demand from the defense sector for military applications, there has been a lot of pent-up demand because of the lockdown for last 4 months, and that has suddenly started coming to me. But then this is not the situation across the board for all industry.
True.
Not all industry are engaged in, supplying goods for military applications. So I think now, for example, in my case, my demand from Indian industry is close to zero today. There is absolutely no demand, and people who were thinking of upgrading or automating their systems before the lockdown have completely changed their plans. There is no longer of the sort on their horizon.
Absolutely. Mr. Tyagi, we have seen a lot of buzz going on online, over the internet about boycott China. My question is, will boycott China affect businesses and startups in entire India, which most of them are dependent on imports we actually get from China?
Well, yes, it's a great misfortune for our nation, that we're a nation that is driven by jingoism. For any kind of event that takes place internationally, it is jingoism that drives our responses to those events. The government, without thinking about the consequences of what would happen, immediately went after, banning all kinds of things. And they have not really worked their mind on this. India's industry, a very large part of our industry, is dependent on Chinese intermediates.
True.
So these intermediates are, in a sense, raw material for finished goods that our industries build or create or manufacture. The Chinese have been at it for a very long time, and their efficiency is unparalleled. We cannot really compete with their efficiencies and efficiencies of scale, that they have. So certainly, there are two problems now that confront our industry. One is that the capacity that we have lost from the ban on imports, we will have to build that capacity first.
Absolutely.
After building that capacity, we start producing our finished goods. The cost of our finished goods is going to rise, tremendously, and I don't know if we will remain competitive in international trade.
Absolutely.
So this is something I don't know how the government even thinks of addressing this. This is not something that you can switch off and switch on whenever you want. Creating that kind of infrastructure, creating that ecosystem is something that takes decades. It's not something you can just switch off today and switch from the other side.
True.
You see, so this is another thing that Indian industry has got to face. And for example, our entire motor ancillary industry depends on inputs from Chinese companies.
Absolutely.
So, well, this is it's unfortunate that we have responded in this manner. Let us see what happens.
Absolutely. So I think the Atmanirbhar Bharat, the phrase which was coined very recently, it will take a lot of time to get activated on the ground.
Yes, certainly. It is not something that the Chinese have built over decades. We certainly cannot hope to build overnight.
Absolutely. Mr. Tyagi, we also have to understand the fact that our economy was in shambles before COVID-19 crisis. And after COVID-19, it went from bad to worse. And right now, we also have security challenges from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. How do you see things as an ex-fighter pilot with Indian Air Forces? And what is the possible way out when it comes to security challenges like these we're currently facing in the entire country?
Well, we come back to your previous question. It's truly unfortunate that not only our government, our government is driven by the kind of people that have elected it.
True.
And they are driven entirely by jingoism. And that is the way they respond to everything that happens around us internationally. If you remember, after Article 370 was abrogated, there was a lot of noise from the ruling party about taking back Gilgit and Baltistan and from POK and things of that sort.
True.
Now, noises of this kind coming out from the ruling party of India, the BJP, is to be taken seriously by everybody internationally. It is something like if we were to hear some kind of statement from a senior person in the Communist Party of China, we would have to take it seriously.
True.
Right? And for China obviously seems to have taken this challenge seriously because China has over $50 billion worth of investment in Gilgit and Baltistan by way of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Right?
True.
So I think this notion of a muscular foreign policy or muscular way of running a nation is a very negative concept, and in the long run, it is something that damages your own interests.
Absolutely.
You see, you may have read in the newspapers just recently about 2 or 3 weeks ago, members of the ruling party have been warned by the Prime Minister not to open their mouth out of turn.
True.
So it appears that at the highest echelons, the government has realized, that opening your mouth out of turn is taken seriously elsewhere. Whereas in our country, all politicians are to the gallery.
True.
So this is something we have to be very mindful of when we conduct international relations, when we conduct diplomacy, and that seems to be lacking in our government. And this has exacerbated the problems that were caused because of COVID, because of an economy that was already on its knees. After that, we got COVID. And now we are confronted with an adversarial situation from a neighbor.
Absolutely. True. I totally agree with you, Captain Rajiv Tyagi. It was a pleasure having you on Plain Talk. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, this was Captain Rajiv Tyagi with us. Next on the panel, we have Dr. Aamir Jamal with us. Let's welcome him. Dr. Aamir Jamal, thank you so much for being with me on Plain Talk. It's really, really an honor to have you on my podcast.
Thank you, Musamman. And let me acknowledge first that you are doing a commendable job as far as podcasting is concerned. And in Kashmir, today there's a buzz about your podcast, and you're really talking about good issues. And once again, I'm really happy to see you on this forum.
Thank you so much. It really, really means a lot. My first question is about the agrarian economy. How much do you see Indian populace is dependent on this agrarian economy? And if you could break it down to our listeners, what this agrarian economy is all about?
Yeah. Any economy, be that an Indian economy or any other economy of the world, if that is centered about production and distribution, trade of agricultural commodities, we can say that economy is an agrarian economy. If we will see towards Indian economy, we can clearly find out that Indian economy is an agrarian economy because major chunk of the country's gross domestic product comes from agriculture. And besides that, there are certain other factors which make us believe that Indian economy is an agrarian economy. For example, this is an only sector which still provides highest level of employment in the country. If we will compare our agricultural sector to the service sector, we can clearly see that even though service sector is contributing 53% towards the gross domestic product, in terms of, I'm talking about total output, right?
True.
So, but right now, Indian agriculture is only contributing 15%. But still, if we will see towards the employment levels, service sector have not been providing that much of employment levels. Even today in India, we can see that 50 to 60% population directly or indirectly depends on the agricultural and allied activities.
Absolutely.
So we can figure out that this is a basic, what we call, we can say it's a foundation of a country like India, because we heavily depend on farmers. If they won't be there, none of the sectors of the country will work, because basic demand in India that comes from agricultural sector. We know that it's not a small number. When we talk about 50 to 60%, it's about 60 to 70 crore people. They are there more. I'm talking about the conservative approach. More than that. They are directly or indirectly dependent on agriculture. If their condition would be good, obviously secondary sector and tertiary sector would develop. If our agricultural sector will lack, because we can see in agricultural sectors there are millions of rural, what we call them, which are vulnerable sections of the society. They are rural landless laborers. And these rural landless laborers, including marginal and small farmers, they usually comprise of 80% of rural households. And if in present times, if we will talk about COVID times, although if we will go a bit back in retrospect, if we would compare the present situation with back to the COVID I'm talking about in retrospect, we can see that at that time, our wholesale price index and other indicators, they were showing that in terms of food inflation, India was not doing good. And the COVID-19 aggravated the problem a bit further. And in recent times, we can see that although agricultural sector has been kept on essential list, but still there are various stumbling blocks as far as what we call supply chains are concerned. Because farmers are not able to sell their produce, how on earth they will earn anything? It's common sense economics. We don't require any rocket science modeling in this. If farmers not able to what we call sell their produce, how on earth they will earn something? They will feed their families? And this will aggravate the problem a bit further. Although recently, Indian government introduced various mechanisms, but when we compare our what we call stimulus against the West, they are not. They are even small numbers there. For example, recently, United States of America, they gave $2 trillion as sort of a stimulus, out of which I guess around about 9 to 10 million was given to agricultural disaster management. And you can see how much India has to give to its farmers. Recently, Prime Minister Kisan scheme, something like that. Under that scheme, 2,000 rupees, something like that was given to the farmers upfront. And for me, this is a minimal account. In today's world, we can see a family consisting of 5 members. If they possess income below 4,000 rupees, they are considered as poor. And if government is providing such kind of help to the farmers, how on earth they will give education to the children, or they will sustain in these kind of situations which are present in these times. So let me reiterate certain things. This COVID-19 is unprecedented. Let's acknowledge it. It has never happened before in the world. Although in history there might have been episodes bigger than this, but I'm talking about modern times. This is unprecedented. We cannot blame government for everything. They are doing their work, but simultaneously, we as the citizens of the country, what we have to do, we have to look for these issues. We cannot say government cannot outreach to everyone. It is job of the civil society. It is the job of the NGOs. It's job of the rich person of the locality to look after the poor ones. Therefore, the government has limited resources. How much they will go on spending, and how they will trace the people. It's not an easy job to trace these people. So
Absolutely.
In present times, the mohalla type, what we have in Kashmir, that will really work with it. That something will be found.
Dr. Jamal, that's what my next question was. 80 to 85%. I was actually checking the World Bank Policy Group data very recently. 80 to 85% of Indian population is working with unorganized sectors. So, what is, according to you, the best way to protect them? We also have to keep in mind, before you answer this question, we also have to keep in mind that Indian economy was in shambles pre-COVID-19 crisis and after that as well. So what is the best way, according to you, to protect this massive percentage of our entire population?
Exactly. First of all, I will clearly see that we have to build the narrative for an unorganized section of the society. If we will take a look, the question should be like that: who are first? People should be aware about who are unorganized, who are the people who work in unorganized sector in India. And if we will take a look broadly towards the Indian economy, we can say that marginal farmers, casual urban laborers, rural landless workers, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, they comprise of unorganized sector. And these are the people who work in the rural areas for others, and some have small plots of land where they just can feed their families. As Karl Marx say, they can just feed their families, and the Karl Marx beautifully quoted in terms of subsistence wage. These unorganized workers just can earn to feed their families for 2 square meals. Sometimes when they don't find a job, they even can't feed their families as well.
True.
So you can understand the poverty in which they are living. So it's not easy to understand for us. We cannot even comprehend their situation. And after that, what I want to say here is that if this is not an economic problem, Muzammil, this is a social problem as well, because most of the unorganized sector comprise of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. If in India we can see 50% of population, even above, these are conservative ethnics, they belong to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. And they are in states like Bihar, Orissa, the districts like Kalahandi, we can see their starvation that's happening. And usually the people are from these sectors, because unorganized sector, that doesn't come under the government rules and regulations. And in India, after 1990, we know the rhetoric was very high as far as globalization is concerned. And as a student of economics, I'm in no way trying to undermine the credibility of all the policies which the government have taken in retrospect in 1990. They did really good to Indian economy. But since 1990s, if we will compare unemployment levels in unorganized sector, and if we will compare what we call the growth rate. Although the growth rate has picked drastically, Indian growth rate has increased considerably. Sometimes it was above 8% in 2003, 2000 under the Manmohan regime. But after that, we can see that the unemployment levels are also increasing. Even organized sector is not able to provide the jobs to the people, because right now what there are strict labor laws. They don't wait for these labor laws, because when foreign MNCs come, they will hire only on the pretext of profits. And they don't care if they won't get people who are a bit educated and all that. They won't keep them in the companies. And if we will see in urban sites, we will see rag pickers, street vendors. These are the persons who are highest vulnerable to what we call the COVID-19 crisis, because we have seen few months back, we have seen people traveling, the migrant workers traveling. That wasn't catastrophe. So they were traveling from their Delhi to their outskirts, and they even were not able to go through the buses, because that actually portrays who they actually are. People then and only realized we have millions of people in India, and estimate this is an already known estimate that about 30 crore people in India, they live below poverty line.
Absolutely.
And these people, we have to take them care of. Now, as far as your question is concerned, how we can protect them, as I already said, these people are marginal farmers or small farmers. Likewise, they are also the rural landless laborers. What we can do, government cannot provide them direct employment opportunities. To be honest, it's extremely difficult because number is very high. What government can do, government can give them waivers, government can give them incentives. For example, if any farmer is sowing seeds on his field for say any crop, wheat or rice, government can give him free fertilizers, government can give him better irrigation facilities. When government will give all these services to these section of people, what will happen? Obviously, their productivity will increase and they will fetch more money out of their produce. With that, they can enhance their what we call farming capacities and capabilities, whatever you call that. Besides that, in urban areas, when we talk about, we know that these section of the organized sector is small enterprises. What government can do in very small enterprises, government can procure goods from them. If government will start with these initiatives, if they will procure goods from micro and small industries, they will remain in business. We know in today's time, as you know already, Musamman, the indigenous firms, they cannot compete with the foreign firms or the local big firms. They cannot, indeed, they cannot. What we have to do, we have to protect them. We have to save them. We have to give them a shield until they will become a big. They will go for what we call economies of scale and all that. And through this weekend, now there are certain people who are not able to find a job, even in small, like street vendors, because their condition is very, they are in shambles, we can say. For those kind of people, government has introduced various policies. Let us acknowledge that as well. Although on paper they look best policies, but their implementation due to corruption, due to nepotism, and other problems, they are not being implemented in the manner they should have been. So like Narega, these schemes, the wage rate in Narega, as recently government has introduced, they have increased it per day wage rate from 182 rupees to something like 202. This is a good initiative. Although 200 rupees is it's a minimal amount of money. But for these people who don't even earn single rupee for a day, if they will get some money, at least they will be able to feed their families. Besides that, government has to also take a look at they have to restructure what we call the schemes which are already there. To start a new scheme is extremely difficult. What we have to do, we have to restructure the old schemes and taking into consideration the modern times. What we call country demands right now. For example, right now country demands huge waivers for farmers. They should be given. We cannot build a new what we call scheme because we are not in that situation right now, because it's unprecedented. It's better to restructure the old policies.
True. Dr. Jamal, my final question before we wrap up. IMF chief economist recently said Indian GDP will be minus 4.5% by 2021. You as an economist, how do you see this? Is this a real danger ahead? And if it is, how can we come out of it?
Yes. Yes, I read that article of IMF, and wherein they clearly mentioned that Indian economy is going to be actually it's a historic low figure. After 19, I am taking a base year of 1961 because IMF has various databases. In fact, like they have International Financial Statistics, World Economic Outlook, and blah blah. They have various financial, what we call international databases, from where they get the data of the countries and they project various things. No one can undermine the credibility of fund. We know that fund is an epitome of what we call forecasting as far as econometric modeling is concerned. And the research there, no one can undermine their credibility. If they are telling you certain things, they mean that. And if we will, this is not, and when we read the article and other what we call blogs of Ms. Gopinathan, we can clearly find out that she clearly states that India is going to have a growth rate of -4.5%. That is an historic low after 1961. But Ms. Gopinathan, again, she also uses a word that this is unprecedented. None of the countries in the world would have witnessed this today because it's in pandemic, it's in global recession. So India is also going to be influenced with that. And if we will take a look into the article, we can find that other blogs of Ms. Gopinathan as well, we can find out that she further says that it is going to be a disaster for Indian economy in these months, but after that, the growth rate would pick up. If we will see the projections of IMF in 2021, they are telling that Indian economy's growth rate will increase back to the 6%. So we have some optimism there. So again, what matters is here is that physical stimulus matters. We have to take this situation very seriously because the projections of Johns Hopkins and other universities of the world, they provided various data and they already estimated that COVID infections are going to increase in India because we usually think the COVID-19 outbreak is something as ephemeral. Ephemeral is something that lasts for a very short time, but actually it was not. We can see, as you can see, how much the cases are increasing day by day since March, June, July, August, and we are getting 50,000, 60,000 cases per day, and this number is going to increase. So what we can do in these times, we have to make sure that food availability at least, because what matters the most is food. People should not. Nobody would want, no country in the world, in fact, would never want that its citizens should die of, their citizens should, if they would die out of starvation. So the basic thing is that we have to pass these months together. How can we overcome these stumbling blocks right now? We can overcome them together by appropriate macroeconomic policies. What are the appropriate macroeconomic policies? We have to, first of all, ensure that supply chains from the agricultural sector should never get stopped. The demand for the agricultural produce should remain there. How we can do that? As government has already done in India, it has what we call declared as essential agriculture in essential what we call sector, and the allied activities, procurement, what we call the delivery, trucking, and all those things, warehousing, and whatever is related to the agricultural things, government has declared them as essential services. So to say that IMF projections are a bit worrying, I would say certainly yes, but taking a closer look at IMF's projection, they clearly state that this is going to end in somewhere in around about 2021, and Indian economy, as it has always sustained big shock, 2008 shock, it is going, because it's a rule of economics and rule of nature. After every what we call a downfall, there is an upturn. Likewise, in every economy, if there is a downturn, recovery will start. And recovery, I hope recovery will start very soon in 2001, so that everything will get back to the normal and people will enjoy. And very nearly, I'm waiting when people will enjoy their lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. I also hope that everything comes back, everything comes back to the normal as soon as possible, and this is the only hope we have. Dr. Aamir Jamal, thank you so much for being with me on Plain Talk today. It was really a pleasure to have you on my show, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, and it's an honor for me to come on this platform with the strong heart of the subject, and as a student of economics, it's an honor for me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You have a lovely time ahead. Bye.
Thank you.
Alright guys, that's all from today's episode. We will be back with another one soon. And hey, you can also support my podcast by logging on to patreon.com/MMP. Thank you so much, and you have a great time ahead. This is your host, Muzammil Maqbool, signing off from Plain Talk.